Hello and welcome to this week's Conversations with Marlene and Pascal. This week, Marlene is going to be talking about how to stop being taken for granted. Let's just start at the beginning. What do you mean by taken for granted?
Can happen in different ways. So, we can be taken for granted by people just arranging things and making plans and just assuming that you don't mind. You'll just go along with whatever it is that they want. Or, they don't consult you, or they don't count you in on things. Sometimes we can be taken for granted by people changing plans or things at the last minute and just expecting us to fall in with them. Or sometimes we can be taken for granted by people just expecting that we'll always be there for them, or we'll drop everything and rush to help. So there are various different ways that we can be taken for granted, but it's not a nice feeling to not be counted. And actually, there are things we can do to make sure that we have a lot less of that. There are times in life that we can discount each other sometimes because we're just busy and we're rushing around and we just we're in our own little world and we just don't think about the other person. But that's just sort of general life stuff. But when we're being taken for granted consistently by somebody or by a range of people, then there's things we can do ourselves to make sure that doesn't happen so much.
Yeah. And I think when you do feel taken for granted, you get a yucky feeling. It feels
Mm.
like you don't matter or not
Mm.
important. Okay. So
Mm.
what would you be able to do? What steps would you take?
Yeah. Yeah, it's that worthiness, isn't it? Not
Yeah,
feeling worthy.
yeah.
I think, and that there's a clue in that, because something I've learned as a therapist over many years, working with couples, working with individual clients, working with people in groups, is that we signal to each other how to treat us by how we behave.
Mm,
Because a lot of the time our communication is, we think it's I'll say something and you hear it and you say something, and we might observe body language or something. But a lot of what happens is subconscious, it happens so fast. And actually we observe how somebody behaves, and that kind of sets a little pattern in our subconscious, we're not even aware that we're doing it. So we just, from our subconscious, we just sort of respond to that. So we respond, we see how they treat themselves, a person treats themselves, or how they behave. And in our brain goes, oh, okay, that's how they need to be prioritized, sort of. They're not bothered, so I won't bother.
yeah.
So, it's how you show up for yourself that actually is the empowered bit that you can have around this. Other people, if they're busy and that's one thing, but how we show up for ourselves is a really powerful way of actually showing other people, modeling to other people how we want to be treated, what we expect to be, how we expect to be treated. And we do that by setting good boundaries for ourselves.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Um, that boundary setting is so important. I agree with all of that. So for anybody that doesn't know how to do that or wants a little bit of a deeper explanation on what that means.
Well, it's worth exploring it when I say setting boundaries for ourselves, because we
Mm.
quite often think about setting boundaries as saying no to somebody.
Setting boundaries, I think a lot of people think is towards other people. I need to
Yes.
set the
Yeah.
boundary for you, but it's not, is it?
Hmm. Well, it is, but there's so much more to it. I always say there's three parts to setting boundaries: wanting to, set a boundary for how other people treat you, wanting to set a boundary for how you want to treat them, but also wanting to set a boundary for how you want to treat yourself. So
Mm.
there's three parts, and it's that latter one that I'm looking at today. So setting boundaries for ourselves, we can do that in different ways. We can actually, how do we treat our health and our self-care and our nutrition and our exercise? By setting those boundaries for ourselves, we're automatically signaling to those people around us who see us doing that, oh, we're prioritizing ourselves. Therefore, they need to prioritize us. We're one of those people who knows they have worth and knows they matter. So they follow suit. And that doesn't have to be great big declarations of, look at me, I'm running a marathon and having the best diet ever. It's just little things. And then there's timekeeping for ourselves. If we can make sure that we take time out for ourselves, or we take time to have lunch, say when we're at work, or we take time to spend with family. So we're letting people know that we are doing that. Sometimes that involves saying, no, I can't do this because I'm taking time. But sometimes it's more about just sort of doing it. And people just see, we all know those people who, they always take time for whatever it is they need to
Mm.
do, or their family or their kids or whatever. And then there is how we speak about ourselves. So I think that's such a powerful one, because it's very easy to, somebody pays you a compliment. Oh, no, it's all right. Not that great, or, oh, I'm so, speaking out loud, I'm so whatever, clumsy, or,
Rubbish.
rubbish. Rubbish is a good one. Yeah. Those sort of negative statements that we might say out loud that they will hear us saying, or even if we don't say them out loud, we're doing it in our mind. It still affects our demeanor. It affects our energy field. It affects the expression on our face. And people can read that. So it's how we speak to ourselves is another really important way of setting boundaries for ourselves. And the last one I want to mention, which I've mentioned from time to time, we've done a video on it before and might do again, is making clear choices, being that bit choosy. So when somebody says, "Do you want to go, to this movie or that movie, to this restaurant or that restaurant?" And like so many of us, are laid back and we don't really mind. We're just having fun hanging out with that person. But actually, if we keep saying, "Oh, I don't mind, you choose," "Oh, I don't mind," then we are signaling to them it doesn't really matter.
Mm.
So, because they don't mind, so we don't mind. So we'll just choose. And so we can end up feeling taken for granted with this lovely, kind person who doesn't even realize that that's what they're doing. So it's about, making those choices and choose something so that you are passing on that message to
Yeah.
this other person. So that is, this is a really powerful way to stop being taken for granted. If it's something that's happening a lot with one person, or with, across the board in different relationships, perhaps at work or with family or friends, to actually demonstrate to other people how much you need to be counted, because you're doing it for yourself.
So if anyone watching is identifying with any of this, how can they get in touch with you?
I would say the best steps to do, the very first thing to do, is to click on the link under the video to take the People Pleaser quiz. As soon as you take the quiz, you'll go to a results page. It'll show you your scores. And there you'll also have the opportunity to watch a free masterclass, which digs right into these different people pleasing behaviors. And I talk about boundaries. I talk about how not to be taken for granted, and all that good stuff.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful, Marlene. Okay, fab. So you'll put the link under the video so that people can
Yes.
access it there. Um, brilliant. Okay, that was really good.
Okay.
Thank you, Marlene. Um, I'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.